Hi, and welcome to Rain Radio, where we have juicy conversations that lead to powerful transformations. We are your hosts. I'm Lila.
And I'm Naomi.
And today we are continuing our conversation about power. So grab your drink and your journal, put on your crown, and let's chat. What are you drinking?
Water. Today it's water. Although I did have some ginger honey lemon tea earlier.
So that sounds way more fun than water, but I too am drinking water at the moment.
It's hot out. Got to stay hydrated.
Definitely. Not quite hot here as it is there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The high today is 80. And it's over.
We might be neck and neck this week, so that's okay. It's cool for us, and I'll take it. I'm still schwitzing though. It's like, oh my God, that could just be my own personal summer. That might be a different episode.
That is a different episode, which we will definitely have to have. But this week we are continuing the power conversation by talking about values and how our values relate to our power. Would you like to start that conversation?
Yeah, to kind of just recap for those of you who are just turning in and didn't listen to last week's, we were talking about what is power and standing in our power and when we give that away. And so to me, when we start talking about values and how that relates to our power, when we know ourselves, when we know our values, one of the things I like to teach when I give workshops or do talks is how when we know our values, then we can create our priorities. And when we do that, it's a benchmark for what we say yes to and what we say no to. And it's in that yes and no that we stand in or give away our power. Would you agree?
I agree 1,000%.
Oh, it's a big percent. That's a big number.
I'm currently seeing that in my own life and experience, particularly in you helping me command my calendar earlier this year. And last week I looked at my calendar and I was like, oh, I'm about to be little. Like, it's the last week of the little phase. So I'm definitely not adding literally anything else to my calendar this week. Like, nothing at all. And that's super powerful. Should I break that down?
I'm just going to say some clarifying things there. For those of you who are like, does that mean she plays the lute? No. Does that mean she's expecting a whole bunch of money coming in? It's not that kind of lute either. No. For some of us, we either know we have our period or we don't. But there's actually 4 phases of a woman's cycle, and that's what Lila's talking about, in case you were confused.
The final phase, the bleeding phase, is actually the first phase. So yes, and in that phase, typically, I'm not bursting with energy. I'm not excited about life. Super critical, super picky. I'm tired, leave me alone. And the best things for me to do at that time is to get really nesty and clean and organize my house and clean and organize my business and nitpick my children and my partner.
Huh.
And adding a bunch of things to my calendar adds a bunch of stress to my life. It makes me even more nitpicky. And I don't like being that person. So one of the ways that I take back my power is by commanding my calendar and scheduling book reading time and energy healing time and snuggles with my boys and things that are soothing and nurturing and internal so that I stay sane and I don't feel like life is in charge of me.
Such a great way to put it. Life's not in charge of me. I'm in charge. Well,
sort of. My uterus is in charge, but you know.
Yeah, at that time, absolutely. So how do you relate that back to your values, that controlling and commanding and managing and owning your calendar? How does that relate to your values? What's the value for you?
I really value feeling amazing. And I really value having a lot of space. After a decade and a half of depression, it's really important to me that I continue to feel amazing. And I value having the space to follow my nose, as I put it, which is just like follow inspiration and follow guidance and being able to kind of do as I will with my time and my energy. And when I command my calendar, I can create that space. For those of you who were not in Naomi and I's conversation about this, which is the whole world except for the NSA, one of my challenges was if there was white space in my calendar, I would fill it with things. Oh yeah, we can do lunch. Oh yeah, I can chat with you that day because there's white space in my calendar. So
I doubt anybody listening to this does that. I know I just never do. There was an eye roll in there in case people wondered.
It wasn't dripping with sarcasm at all.
No, not at all.
So what I started doing is scheduling in pink space, which is what my me time in my calendar looks like. So I have workout time scheduled, it's always pink. I have goal time scheduled, it's always pink. I have Duolingo, I do it every day, it's pink in my schedule. So I just started turning my second Ludo week pink. So I don't have any white space in my calendar.
Awesome. And that's probably a whole nother conversation, so make a note of that whole owning your calendar piece. When it comes to our values, so if Lila's big thing is space and feeling amazing, for some people, their top values, like for me, one of mine is security. Another one of mine is traditions. And connection/collaboration. So for me, when I look at my schedule, and I'm a Leo. So one, that means I like to be, I like the spotlight. Give me a microphone. I'm happy. It means I also like to have fun with stuff. And so if things start feeling too heavy, too busy, too boring, I'm gonna lose enjoyment and interest in those, or they're gonna make me crabby. I realize that sometimes not every single thing is going to feel necessarily like hula hoops and blowing bubbles in the backyard, and yet the more it feels like that, the more engaged I am, the more I want to do it, the more I want to continue whatever that is. That may mean certain things like turning my books over to a bookkeeper so it doesn't give me a headache. Some of that power means knowing what I'm saying yes to and knowing what I'm saying no to. If I know that my values, I'll use one of my clients. So many people who have kids will tell me that their family is their highest value. No offense to them. And if you're sitting there thinking, yep, that's about right for me. For some of you, it's true. But for most of you, it's not. It's a canned answer. That's not bad. There typically is a value underneath that. Is your family important to you? Absolutely. And often there's a value, integrity, compassion, tradition, whatever that is, equality, whatever that value is for you, is typically also part of family. But when we know those values, then when people come to us and say, hey, can you do this event? Can you be part of this thing? Hey, there's this thing going on. Hey, can you? Instead of doing like Lila was describing, like I never do, writing in and going, oh my God, yeah, that sounds great, and committing to it before even checking your calendar, or seeing that, gosh, you know what? I can do that. And, I have 2.7 minutes of time in between every single activity today. That should be great.
Sufficient time. to make me feel like an insane person.
Right? And I have had days like that. I had one like that last week. And my husband looked at me and he's like, that's not like you to do. And I'm like, I have no idea what I was thinking. I really don't. Wow. Now, luckily, the universe was like, yeah, she doesn't like working that way. And so something got canceled. Woohoo, breather, thank you, big you.
Yeah.
But when I know what my values are, instead of saying okay to everything, I really have an opportunity, because if I do that and I have overpacked my schedule, what happens? I don't know if this happens for you people. Lila, tell me if it happens for you. After a while, I get resentful. All these people who want me to do all this stuff and I don't have any time for myself, and it's really starting to piss me off, especially when I hit that little phase. Oh my God, how come I never get anything?
I just need to quit my job.
You what?
That's my answer. I just need to quit my job. I'm working too many hours. That didn't go quite as planned.
Well, yes and no. But you did finally follow through on that.
I did.
And yes, sometimes when we get in that space, do some of these things that people ask us to do feel and sound really amazing? And some of them really are. And some of them we might even really, really want to do because it does sound really, really cool. But when we overpack our schedule, we're giving our power away. And we're also, if we're not giving ourselves the time and space we need to work towards our values, or the time and space we need for self-care, we're in essence telling ourselves we're not worth it, which we all know is BS, right?
Yeah.
So we want to take that power back, know your values so you can say yes to those things that really, you used a great word earlier, inspire you, versus have that S word attached. I should go do that. I really should.
So, Naomi, I mean, that's nice.
It is, isn't it?
But how the hell do I even know what my values are?
That's a great question, Lila, and I can tell you how not to. Don't take a sheet of 400 values words, circle your top 20, cross out 10, cross out another 5, take those 5 and pick your top 3. There's your top values. No, don't do it. No, that's a conscious process, and typically what happens is the ones, or at least some of the ones, that people often end up with are the things they wish they had more or that they want to cultivate, not their actual core values. So to get to your core values, it's some unconscious work, and you can do some of this yourself. It's really great when you work with an NLP practitioner to dig out. There's an entire values exercise I do with clients, and we can get to your values. What's that?
You said an NLP practitioner. I said such as Naomi.
Oh, yes, such as Naomi. That is true. She's a great one, I hear. Where we go through a process to dig into your unconscious to pull out those core values. And we can do them in life in general, and we can also pull out your values in business or in health or in relationships, because sometimes our top values in business might be different than our values around health. And so it's always great to see, are there conflicting values that have us bumping up against our own stuff and leave us feeling split between. Another way to do it that I have found helpful is, say I'm trying to figure out what are my values in life. The question would be, what's important to me about life? If I'm trying to find out about health, it would be, what's important to me about health? Now, one way you can do this is write that question out with your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, use your right hand. If you're left-handed, use your left. And then answer, just free-form answer that question. Keep asking it, but answer it with your non-dominant hand. You may or may not be able to read it, but you will. And start to see what the patterns are. That's going to tell you more what your values are. There's a whole second and third step to that process in working with someone, but that will at least start to give you what's truly important to you in those areas.
Awesome. I stumbled upon mine completely accidentally.
Which is not a bad thing.
I was just like, don't like this, don't like that, really hate that. Ooh, this must be important to me.
Right. Well, and that's another great way of doing it. What is it that, man, you would stand on the street corner with a megaphone on a soapbox and shout to the world? And what is it that you rail against? What are those things that piss you off that you're like, oh, I am not standing for this? Because it does.
Yeah.
It gives you what's important to you. So you, I'm sure, hit on things that there's so much truth and accuracy in what's right for you and what's of value to you. So I have a question.
Yes.
So what happens when you do things that don't align with those values of yours?
Oh gosh, chaos and pandemonium. So, and I'm gonna preface this with, this is not necessarily true for every single person, but due to my psychic superpowers and how connected to my soul and to the spiritual realm I am, I don't get to be unconscious. I don't get to be unaware. I don't get to not know. So when I'm like, oh, well, I know it's really important that I don't know, move my body every day. And it's really important for my vitality, and I love feeling amazing. When I don't, my body yells at me. Like, excuse me, ma'am, have all the allergies, feel like you have the flu, just be miserable and unhappy until you remember that I require yoga or bike rides or walks or sex or swimming or something that feels like a workout, literally 5 days a week. And then I'm like, I apologize. I love you. Let's get ourselves together. Or I want it to, this is like an extreme example. And this is one of those, like, discovering my values. I had a full-time job, and I wanted to be at home when my babies got off the bus. They were 2, 4, and 6, 3, 5, and 7. 3, 5, and 7. And I wanted to be home when they got off the bus. They got off the bus at 2. Well, I totaled my car and got laid off from my job as the bus stop every single afternoon. And it was in that experience that I discovered exactly how important it was that I be accessible to my babies. And then I stopped taking jobs that didn't allow me to be accessible to my babies.
Well, but Lila, that's not always possible.
Actually, it is. The universe is always saying yes. What we might have to do is ask other questions, ask different questions, ask better questions. But somewhere in your choices is a choice that's going to be a better fit for your values than the ones that are going to take you, that are going to derail you from your values. So I work a day job, but my day job allows me to be accessible to my minis. And my minis aren't so mini anymore. They're 11, 13, and 15. But I am home in the middle of the day to have lunch with my boys and to hang out with them before I go back to work for a few hours. My day job pays my bills. It allows me to network. I work with great people. And I still get to work my business. I still get to do this call with you. I still get to be accessible to my babies.
It's perfect.
When
Go ahead. When we say, oh, but that's not possible, oh, but you don't understand because, that's where we are giving our power away. So just listen this week to see, does that show up anywhere for you? And it may or may not be around work. It may be in relationship. It may be in relationship doesn't necessarily mean romantic. It could be in relationship with family, with a parent or a sibling or a best friend, or an organization you're involved with. Oh, but you don't understand because they really need me to da, 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 da. And then we do the dance of, here, take my power, I'm giving it to you, instead of owning it myself. Oh, but you don't understand. I can't because, well, but I have to.
And whatever's on the other side of because and have to are the places you're leaving your power. And
are you ready to pick that power back up?
Yes, absolutely. How do we pick it up?
You were starting to say, and?
Yeah.
And then I interrupted.
No, I was going there. And in order to take your power back from those places or pick it back up, I am most fond of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I am most fond of asking, what would it take to change this? What would it take to have the thing that I would like to have? For some of us, it is part-time employment that allows me to grow my business and raise my children while keeping a roof over our head and food in our stomachs and clothes on our backs, and apparently trombones for us to play. Or what else is possible? Which sounds really vague, but it's one of those questions that opens our minds up to so much. Because if we think I have 3 choices, and we ask, okay, so I could get a full-time job, which I'm allergic to full-time employment, or I can stress myself out trying to strangle my business to death, trying to make it immediately support us, or I can sit in a heap on the floor and cry. I don't like any of those options. What else is possible?
Well, and I think that this is where the fuck the social construct piece comes in big time.
Yes.
When I was a personal trainer, everybody told me that, oh, you're going to have to work a split schedule. And I'm like, I don't even know what you mean. Because I came from the corporate world where it was, 8 to 5, 7 to 6, 30.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what's this split schedule you speak of? And they're like, oh, well, trainers, we're always busy from about 6 to 8 in the morning, then a couple at lunchtime, and then about 5 to 9 at night. And I'm like, no. Number one, I'm a morning person. I'm not a night person. Number two, with what my commute was, I couldn't go home in between those shifts because it was a good hour, an hour and 15. And I'm like, no. I'd be spending 6 hours on the road driving back and forth. So what am I going to do? Just hang out at a coffee shop in between all day? It makes for really long freaking days. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I will have a schedule where I am fully booked, and I will be home before rush hour starts, so I will be home no later than 3. Mm-hmm. And I was committed to that. And everyone said, oh, yeah, that'll never happen. Yeah, no, you can't do that. That's not how this industry works. That's the social construct. The social construct and the belief is this is how society works. And I said, F you. And guess what? I created it such that almost every single day I was booked. I taught a crazy early, ungodly, it's still dark out, boot camp. And then I went and started meeting my personal training clients. And I think my first client was usually 7 or 8, depending on the day. And I was done by 1 or 2.
That's amazing.
And so then I would drive before everybody else got on the road, and I'd kick back on the deck in the redwoods and woohoo. And everyone else said, oh, it can't be done. But I said, what else is possible? Well, that was before I knew that question. But in essence, so where are you not allowing possibility? Where are you giving your power away? Because possibility helps you own your power, yes?
Yes, absolutely. I would play with that this week and look at your values and what it is that you really value and how you are using your time and your energy and your resources to support those values, because that is owning your power.
Yeah, so while you're doing that work, ask yourself, what makes your blood boil? And then ask yourself, what value does that push up against? Mm-hmm. Ask yourself, what is it that you stand for? And those things will help you determine what those values are. And then look at your calendar, what you're saying yes to and no to, and how do they align, or do they align with your values? And determine what things, sort of the KonMari method of values and power, what are those things, how do they align? And if they don't align, are you willing to let them go and allow the space for something else? Can you, and are you willing to take your power back?
Mm-hmm. That sounds like the perfect place to pause for the week.
Juicy.
Awesome. I have one more thing to add. If you would like support with unearthing your values, I highly recommend you connect with Naomi, because she's really, really good at it.
Oh, thank you.
My pleasure, darling. And we will talk to you guys next episode.
Awesome. Have a great week.